Hello. I am trying to address the question of or the situation where you may no longer see those three bars, which I have on the top of the screen right now when you go to the IRS Where's My Refund checker, and instead you see what is on the bottom of the screen. Obviously, this is a fairly low-tech video. This is actually a former channel that dealt with old-fashioned DOS video games, so this has nothing to do with video games, and apologize for anyone who is subscribed to this channel who might see this upload. But I am just trying to help some folks who may have gone through the same thing that I have gone through, and that is I did experience the situation where the bars that you normally see on the Where's My Refund tracker disappeared. Instead, I saw the message that was on the bottom. And I was a little concerned when I started doing some research. There is a little information on some web forums and a few other videos from previous tax years, and there's some scary stories out there. There is a debate as to what exactly it means. Some people just say this is a temporary glitch at times, or it just means that the IRS is just processing your refund. However, if you notice on the bottom message, it no longer says that your refund will be issued most likely in 21 days. Also, there's no indication of how much the refund should be. And that leads me to believe that the fairly prevalent concept, if not, it might be a rumor, but it does seem to be an accurate understanding, is that if you see what is on the bottom of the screen rather than those ones at the top of the screen, then your tax return, most likely is under human review by the IRS. So somebody at the IRS is taking a look at your review, probably your return manually, and that's most likely because something in the computer system flagged your return as being somewhat askew or having some issue with it that required a second set of eyes, a human set of eyes on it. So as you most likely know, whether you submit your return electronically yourself or through a tax preparer, or if you submit it even in the paper form by mail, it will go through a computerized system first. If everything's okay, they'll issue your refund if you are owed a refund. But sometimes things don't look okay, and that's most likely why you're getting the bottom screen. And it does make sense because, like we said, if it's no longer promising that it'll take place in 21 days, so something is delaying the IRS as to how long it may potentially take for them to get you that refund, usually versus the normal promised period of time of 21 days. And here's my situation, and I can see why that makes some sense. So I am pretty solidly middle class. I have a half decent salary. I don't think it's necessary to tell you exactly what that might be, but I get it from one employer. I'm a W-2 employee. I do have a few small investments, but pretty straightforward, pretty much straightforward as to how my taxes work and the information I might have, such as very minor capital gains this year. All that information comes into the IRS from Fidelity in my case, so very easily verifiable. How many kids I have is verifiable based upon their social security number, etc. But there were a few changes this year that may have caused the system to want to re-examine my return or have somebody re-examine my return. One thing is that I do give a decent amount of money to my church. I don't say that to brag. Obviously, this is an anonymous video or anything like that. It's just a question of I give a certain proportion of my income to my church, and that tends to be a little higher than somebody with similar income may generally give in charitable contributions. I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years through TurboTax, and I've never had an issue before, even though that might seem a little strange. But I think the IRS understands that people tend to give a certain amount to churches or religious institutions, so that by itself isn't an issue, though that does obviously reduce how much I do pay in taxes as I do itemize. But some things that were a little different this year was I had some very minor side income, only $400, but that's not normally part of my taxes. And I did take a couple of deductions from it. I did have some travel expenses, which were a little strange, and then a couple of materials and such, where I think were all legitimate. TurboTax really had no issue with me taking them. I obviously trying to be honest. So I don't think that there was nothing dishonest there, but it may have seemed a little strange and may have combined with some of the other factors warranted a second look. Also, I did have some cryptocurrency investments, quote unquote investments. They actually took a loss, a decent sized loss, not huge, but enough that it did affect my taxes, brought them down a little bit. And so I think all those things combined were a little strange, and I could see how my return might look a little funny to the system and might warrant a review. Obviously, I don't know exactly what caused it, but it does make some sense. So I did get this message, and as I was reading about it, one of the things that concerned me was that it can sometimes take quite a while to get your return once the IRS flags it. They don't give you a ton of information. There are people out there saying they're waiting months and months. Some people even say they had very simple, straightforward returns, more straightforward than mine. No reason why this would have happened, and it just took them forever. And if they come back to you with a question or something, it can take another 60 days or so for the IRS to put you back in the system, assuming everything's resolved correctly. So that was a big concern for me. But fortunately, I can say that for me, things worked out pretty well. It was, like I said, I don't think there was an issue. With anything, I think it maybe just required somebody to take another look because the situation was a little strange, and yours may have little flags too that might prompt them to kick it over to an actual human reviewer at the IRS. But in my situation, if your situation is the same, hopefully the outcome is the same, that it was a few days. I don't even think it was a week. And it is now actually back to the 3 bars with the refund approved message coming through. So I suspect they looked through it. They said, okay, this is a little bizarre, but we don't see any problems here with the math. There's no error or anything like that. I've worked through TurboTax, so it shouldn't have been. And they just passed it through to the system. So I think and hope that that's the situation for most people. If you don't have an error, and if you were honest with everything and accurate in your calculations, there shouldn't be a reason for the IRS to have to take another step. They should be able to just verify things and put it back in the system like that. If there is a mistake, it's a reason just to be very careful when you submit these things, and probably using tax preparing software or having a tax preparer is a good idea. Not that that's foolproof, of course, but if you have something like that, hopefully it'll mitigate the chance of them coming to you with a mistake. If there is a mistake, sadly, the information on the internet seems to be that you're going to have to go back to them, provide them the information, and then they'll put you back in the queue, and it could take a little while to get it back. Fortunately, that's just how bureaucracy works, how the IRS works, and it is a scary period because you don't know how long it is going to take, and you may really need that money. There's a taxpayer advocacy group, but they tend not to help you unless you're really indigent or if you've just been working forever with the IRS and they're not getting back to you, trying to work with you. The good thing is if things are really delayed at some point, and it's not that great, but the IRS after some point, I think it's 45 days or so, does have to pay you 4% interest on your refund. So it's in their interest to get it back to you quickly too, or they're going to have to pay interest on it. And at least if you get it late, you might get a decent return on your investment, if you will. If you are really held up, like I said, there are the taxpayer advocates. They'll eventually probably step in for you. You may be able to call the IRS and maybe get a nice person there who might be able to help you. If not, if none of those channels work, you may have to retain somebody. I know H&R Block will, even if you didn't work through them to prepare your tax return, that they have professionals who can help you with the letters and help you through the process. And they might have to do that, particularly if you have thousands of dollars outstanding. It may be worth them pay a fee to try to get that help. But anyway, in summary, while there will be disputes in the discussions over this, and some people claim that's not the case, I think it's most logical that if you get the second message, they're no longer guaranteeing you either a specific refund amount or they're no or guaranteeing that it'll be able to get back to you in 21 days. And the most logical, at least as far as I'm concerned, reason for that is somebody is reviewing it, and there does seem to be a lot of data and anecdotes out there indicating that's the case. If you do not think there's an error because you use TurboTax or a similar service, and if you're being honest with everything and reporting everything accurately, then it should just be a question of them reviewing it, putting it back in the system, But if there are more outstanding things, sadly that can delay things. And just a good reminder for anyone who may not have this issue, maybe just stumbled upon here somehow. Be honest in reporting. Make sure you report everything to the IRS that they have information from employers and investment firms and such, from HSAs. Otherwise, you could run into some trouble. Audits are very rare, but reviews are fairly common if they see something askew with your return that could lead to greater problems. So I hope this may have assuaged some of your concerns, particularly if you don't think there's any real reason, maybe just some complexity to your tax return that caused this issue, but no reason for there being an error or an omission. Hopefully, it'll put your mind at ease a little bit. If you are concerned about that, at least you know somebody's reviewing it, and hopefully they'll get back to you with a return. At least you know what's happening. Most likely, they'll get back to you asking for some more information, or trying to get in touch with an employer or somebody like that to verify income. If this wasn't helpful, I apologize for wasting your time. Not a tax professional myself, have it as a bit of a hobby, but I do hope this does help somebody out there. So anyway, well, best of luck through the tax season, and hope this was somewhat helpful overall. Thanks a lot. Bye.